What's your favorite movie?
Cardi B.
Kamala Harris broke the state record for incarcerating black males.
Well, let's not buy into the myth that black folks don't love sitting in jail.
Weren't your parents civil rights activists?
I don't know, but let me tell you what I will do when I am elected president of the United States. I will kill brown babies, put people in jail, and legalize drunk driving. How about that?
Why?
Shut up.
See that just grow? See the trees in there? They grow naturally. They grow naturally. You can take them, put them out here. You have the nicest trees in the country.
Unbelievable.
That's a maple right there.
I love it.
It just grows. You know why? It's a very vibrant part of the world. I don't care what, right?
I agree.
And I do a little cut, but the little hook is still prettier.
Yep.
You're right up here. Oh,
Right there.
looky.
Do you have that?
Well, I have a great playlist.
Playlist.
I have a playlist. It's all good stuff.
Yep.
It's too old for you. We'll play this when we're finished breaking this record, if that ever happens.
Time to say goodbye. I love it.
Biden, by the way, if he does die in the next few weeks, then it's... Well, it's not the most shocking thing, man. I mean, Kamala Harris is going to be president. You know how it'll be for 6 months. It's like having a substitute teacher. People be like, hey, the last president told us we didn't have to pay taxes. You're like, are you sure about that? People just getting crazy.
People are getting crazy out there. What's going on? This is the 38th Parallel, episode 25. And what's going on, Alan?
Only about a month till football, dude.
I know, it's crazy. A month.
Yeah. Oh, this could be the longest.
Okay, yeah. So this is how you know, like, if you're a fan or not, is that I'm literally looking at mini camp and all that stuff. I'm looking at videos of the 49ers. I'm thinking, oh, how did Brock Purdy do at freaking day 3 of training camp? How did the rookie Malik Mustafa, how is he playing? That's how you know you're like a real fan. Because because if you're like just a casual fan, you're just like, I'm just waiting for the season to start. But I'm like, no, I want to know who's doing well in practice.
Yeah.
Are you the same way?
Well, if you're gonna do like a show about sports, I don't know anyone who would do that, but I'm just saying if you were gonna do a sports show starting back up here in a few weeks, then you would need to have some stuff to talk about for your big season opening NFL or college season preview episode. So like all of that is going to be based off of, you know, injury news and training camp and preseason and, you know, experts predictions and all that. Although, all those like preseason prediction things are always trash, right? Like they've been predicting the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl for like 20 years now.
Well,
Like basically ever since Josh Allen came along, it's like, oh yeah, the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl next year, you guys. And then they start the season like 2-6. So.
Okay. So since we're on this topic, and I'm just curious because you're a Cowboys fan. So I want to know, what's the team that you absolutely, I may have asked you this already, so I forget if I have or not, but what's the team you just absolutely, you can't, like, you hate them? Doesn't matter. You hate them forever. 49ers, right?
Yeah, probably just the 49ers. I mean, because the thing is like, because you think of like teams in the divisions that they're in, and you think of, because sometimes the divisions have realigned over the decades, but like teams that have been in the same division for many decades, like they typically are obviously huge rivals and hate each other and all. Right. You think of like the Steelers and the Ravens or the, or the Bengals, basically all the teams in the AFC North. But the thing is that as a Cowboys fan, I don't even hate the Eagles, Giants, and Redskins that much because they're just so beneath us that it's like, do you hate ants? Like, I don't even hate ants. I'm like, oh, you suckers, get out of here, Like, oh no, the Eagles won a Super Bowl recently. Oh my God.
Right.
Like join the fucking club, right?
Yeah, right.
So I don't even care about those teams. I really don't. So I care more about teams that have actually competed in the years with the Cowboys were like serious Super Bowl threats. So in the era of football, really before my time, it would have been the Steelers because the Steelers were the dominant NFL team. The Cowboys were really good, but they weren't better than the Steel Curtain. And then the 80s rolled along. And again, the Cowboys are good more often than not. But then you have like the Montana 49ers, right?
Right.
And then the 90s roll along and the Cowboys are the team. Green Bay had like 1 year with Brett Favre. Like people forget that, right? Like Brett Favre, you know, Hall of Famer. Well, they really only had 1 year. Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
They had 1 year, and the rest of the time it was please stop throwing interceptions.
Yeah. Right.
And then the 49ers had 1 year with Steve Young where they
Mhm.
played the Chargers.
Yeah, right.
I don't nobody knows how the Chargers made the fucking Super Bowl that year against the 49ers, but anyway, but other than those one-off years, it was like, okay, it's the Cowboys. And then all those teams kind of took a huge backseat there for a while. Like the Cowboys got really bad for a while because they're just mired in the ineptitude of Jerry Jones. But I mean, the Green Bay went downhill for the last number of years afar before Rodgers came along, and the 49ers went downhill for a while. Then Steve Young retired, and and all that. So I mean, it's just just changing of the guard and veteran players aging out and all that. But I hate those teams, the teams that competed with the Cowboys for the top of the NFC during their golden years, and the teams that the Cowboys played like cross rival than I care about their divisional rivals. Like the Cowboys have never been threatened by the Eagles, Redskins, and Giants as much as they have like the Packers and 49ers.
Well, I mean, I guess in recent memory, you could say, yeah, the Eagles, they're the team now in the NFC East. So, but so speaking
are they because they split with the Cowboys the last 2 years and the Cowboys just won the division, or the Eagles are the team in the NFC East?
Well, I mean, I don't know. That's what everyone's. Oh, their offense is so good. But their defense was absolute shit. After
the offense that completely fell apart and they lost like a bajillion
Right.
straight games and lost. Yeah. Oh yeah, the Eagles are so good. Yeah.
Yeah, after they lost against the 49ers, they're just like, well, I guess that's it. Our season's over.
Yeah, dude, the Eagles are already over. Like the Eagles, no, I'm serious. The Eagles are already done. Like Jalen Hurts was never that good. They were running a pseudo gimmick offense with the whole tush push.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now what's his name? The
Tush
lineman Kelsey, he retired.
Oh, Jason, yeah.
Yeah. So he's gone. So at a bare minimum, that whole gimmick's not going to be as good. Then Hurts started getting hurt all the time. Because imagine that mobile quarterbacks don't do great in the NFL compared to college because you're not like a man playing against boys anymore.
Right.
So no, dude, the Eagles are not even like I'm not just being a salty Cowboys fan. I genuinely think the Eagles are done. They're not even contenders anymore.
Well, so we were talking about the Chargers. Like, how do they get to Super Bowl? So I looked it up. Like I'm looking at it right now. So in the playoffs, they beat the Dolphins in the divisional round, 22-21.
Yes, and by the way, the Dolphins were never good. Like I'm so sad for Dan Marino that he never really had a genuinely good team. So sorry.
Yeah,
and they won by one.
Yeah, they won by one. Yeah, and then the AFC Championship game, they faced the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and they beat the Steelers 17-13. Man, the Niners versus the Steelers. Whew, that would have been a good game.
If so, that may have been the Steelers when they were still playing Neil O'Donnell as their starting quarterback, because they made it back to the Super Bowl next year just to get skunked by the Cowboys.
Yeah.
But so the Steelers would have been better off probably not getting beat at home in the title game to the fucking Chargers and at least having one more shot at a 90s Super Bowl. And they kind of wet the bed there.
And then for the 49ers, they beat the Bears in the divisional round 44-15. So they whooped ass there.
Kind of surprised. Yeah.
And then
surprised the Bears.
Yeah. And then the NFC Championship game against the Cowboys. Finally beating the Cowboys after the third time. Third time's the charm. 38-28. And then 49-26 against the Chargers. So, yeah. And you know who was the offensive coordinator of that team? Mike Shanahan, the father of current 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan. So,
your boys were on the front page of ESPN today because they were talking about the 49ers are going in. They're getting ready to head into their final year before the Brockpocalypse.
Right. Yeah.
where because they had the dream. I mean, because sometimes you wonder, like, why would a team that has like most of the pieces and has some salary cap, why would they pin all their hopes like on a super young or rookie quarterback? And the answer is because if you hit the lottery and you get a guy, like, they don't have to be a god, they don't have to be, like Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, they just have to be top third. If you can get a top third in the NFL guy right out of the gates while you're paying them like, $120,000, a year or some ridiculous amount of money, then that means you can pour every penny you've got into your line, into your skill players, into your defense. And like, it's just boom, instant championship window. And they did that. Like, because of course, as we all recall, that wasn't their first guess. They didn't know that Brock was like, it's not like the 49ers knew Brock was great and everybody else didn't. They picked him last for a reason.
Well, actually, during the Super Bowl media week thing, whatever, when they interview all the players and coaches, Kyle Shanahan said, and he was apparently drunk. I have no idea. I'm probably speculating there, but no, he said, I don't know if it was Kyle or Jed York, one of those two. So take this with a grain of salt. But they basically said, "Oh yeah, we knew right away he was the best quarterback on our roster." Well, if you knew that, then why didn't you start? Oh, because
they're full of shit. That's why.
It's like, come on, really?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one thing to get somebody in the building and realize that they've, maybe they've got some intangibles. Maybe they're a quick learner, maybe they're really picking up the playbook and they can handle more workload. Maybe they're just a dog in the weight room, all that typical bullshit of, first one in, last one. How are 40 different guys on the same team, the first one in and the last one out? But anyway, so they hit the lottery and they got their guy. And of course, 1 year they kind of got screwed because he got hurt, like right there at the end and lost to the Eagles. Like, of course, as we know now, the Eagles were not really all that great. If he hadn't gotten hurt, they probably could have beaten the Eagles. They would have at least had another opportunity. And then, of course, obviously they had this past year. We're not going to revisit that.
Can you imagine? No, but can you imagine if it actually ended up being Niners Chiefs back to back? Oh my God, the casual football.
I mean, it could.
Yeah,
it could. I mean,
this year too. Yeah.
Like, I didn't think the Chiefs were that good last year, and I think the Chiefs will be worse this year. It's just attrition from having so many years and so many ballooning contracts and all that. But there, to beat the champ, you got to beat the champ, and all these other AFC teams who outperform the Chiefs for a dozen weeks go into the postseason and just shit the bed. So I mean, what are you supposed to say? Like, the Chiefs had a few really ugly games last year, and then they go to the Super Bowl. So I mean, it is what it is. But this is the last year. So if you're the 49ers, like, this year is like, okay, we gotta, because they kind of started slow last year, remember? So it's like, let's take care of business. Let's get a good seed in the, let's get home field.
It's been par for the course for them.
Yeah, and let's try to go in. It's that whole unfinished business mentality, right? Like, let's try to take care of business and get to the end of the year healthy, and close it out where we failed to do before. And I'm sure they would rather not play the Chiefs again, just because it's a mental thing. It's like, oh, here we fucking go. Like, if they get midway into the third quarter and then they start to struggle, then you can't, it just breeds, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's those thoughts start to enter the back of your mind of, oh, here we go. It's going to happen again.
If they get a 10-point lead on the Chiefs again, you're just like, because I remember when that happened, when they got a 10-point lead, I was thinking, oh shit, oh man, it's gonna happen again, isn't it? And lo and behold,
like, I would tell people, like, look, call me Bountygate if you want, but if I were the 49ers and I was playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl again, and I had like a 10-point lead in the second half, I would have my third string defensive end go out there and grab Patrick Mahomes' arm and break it.
I mean, yeah.
And he'll get fined, and there'll be investigations, and you'll have a Super Bowl.
You know, the crazy thing though is their backup now is Carson Wentz, and
Yeah.
he's actually, I don't think he's lost against the 49ers ever. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure he has like a really good record against them.
You know what's interesting is I know in your heart of hearts, it's like it would be stupid to say that you would rather not win a Super Bowl. Of course you would rather win the Super Bowl than not. But how fucking weird would it be if the 49ers had won it all with Jimmy G and then went back to the Super Bowl 2 or 3 more times and lost every time? Because then Jimmy Garoppolo would be like, ha, see,
Right.
I was the real leader of the team.
You got the one, but then Brock Purdy got you 3 appearances, but 0 wins.
Well, I mean, it's just like the Eagles with oh shit, his name his name just left my mind. The guy who won.
Oh,
the backup who won.
Nick Foles.
Yeah, Nick Foles. I mean, Nick Foles goes in there and has the fucking game 3-week stretch of his whole fucking life. I mean, you can't take it away from him. He played lights out, and they won it all. And they were like, because they never intended to keep him. They always intended to have Wentz come back and be the starter. So, I mean, they weren't even like the engines weren't even cooling from their Super Bowl parade. And they were like, hey, Foles, we'll find you a good trade. Because they didn't want him on the team as a distraction, right? Because he's not really the starter. And things went to shit. And sure, the Eagles have rebounded since then, but they've never won it all again. And Foles' career hasn't been good since then either. But it's like, why break up a good thing? I think neither party benefited. And of course, Wentz has moved on since then too, obviously. But so anyway, the 49ers, like, this is the year where they're either going to have serious staying power and they're going to close the deal or not, because they're like, they just gave Tua a 4-year extension for like $200 something million.
Yep.
Jordan Love, who's played like 3.5 quarters of good football for Green Bay, just got a new deal for like $200 something million. You know that Brock Purdy is his agent is gonna be saying, look, we played ball, right? We didn't complain about our rookie contract.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're sleeping on the couch and living in the RV because we're trying to win. We're putting the team first. But now it's time to get paid. So how about only the second highest paid quarterback?
Right.
And as much as I would say he's not worth that, I mean, from his perspective, it would be, well, I'm top 10%, in my rookie, season, second, third years. He did have a little bit of an injury thing, but he's gotten over that. He's fine now. Mm-hmm. And he also knows that he was kind of the linchpin of the team for the last few years. So as far as he's concerned, he's like, I've paid my dues. I've earned it. It's time to get paid. And if they have to turn around and pay him like Deshaun Watson, right? If they go give Brock Purdy $250 million guaranteed, ain't nobody else on that team getting paid.
Right.
The better. So it doesn't necessarily mean that means they suck that year, because it's like contract turnover will take a year or two. So it's like this year, it would be great if they won. Next year, they're going to give every cent of cap space they have to Brock Purdy, which means they'll have like that season. His contract, this is technically his contract year. The following year, they have to hope he doesn't fall off a cliff and they can win that year. And then the year after that, they're going to start losing people. So it's like,
yeah. And another thing that he could say too is that I fucking saved your season, man. Like, you lost Trey Lance and you lost Jimmy Garoppolo. I could have, like, when people saw Jimmy Garoppolo go down, they're like, I guess the season's over. We're gonna see what this Purdy, what the hell kind of a name is that? And then he freaking balls out. And like the Miami Dolphins game was, when you watch the highlights, whatever, right? That was a good game. Like, oh shit, from a freaking Mr. Irrelevant, holy shit. And then of course the Buccaneers game, I saw that game live. I was like, holy shit, this guy, man.
Well, you think about some of the other random rookies and low draft picks over the last season or two that like kind of had their 15 minutes of fame and then flamed out. Like that Italian kid that was playing for the Giants this past year that had like 1 or 2 good games. The one that was always like, you know what I'm talking? I've already forgotten his name.
DeVito?
Yeah, DeVito. Yeah. So
Tommy
like
DeVito or something like that.
Yeah, Tommy DeVito. So like he had like 1 good game and then tanked and then had 1 more good game and like, because then because they're just desperate. They're just desperate to cling on to something.
Right.
And he has like a couple of good games and all of a sudden it's like, oh, everyone wants to get an endorsement deal with this kid who came out of nowhere who has a funny name and DeVito, ha 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 ha. He does the whole Italian thing.
Yeah.
And then he tanks and he's fucking terrible. And and over the last 3 or 4 weeks, he's like the worst quarterback in the NFL. So he clearly, like, the difference between those guys and Brock Purdy is there's been a handful of other guys that fit that description. Like Mason Rudolph, he wasn't a rookie, but like he came into the Steelers when the Steelers it was like, Tomlin's going to lose this record of 500 seasons. And Rudolph comes in and they're like, well, we know what he can and can't do because he's been with the organization, but he plays well. They get into the playoffs. And it's like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they should have invested more in him. But every one of those guys, when given the opportunity, like when all the weight was put on their shoulders, they caved. Whereas Brock Purdy didn't. That's the only difference. That's the only difference between them and them is when Brock Purdy was given the complete reins, other than the injury thing, he didn't collapse under the pressure, where those other guys demonstrated why they're quality backups, because they can come in and win you a game, but they can't save your season. Brock Purdy played a season well, so because he's a starting quarterback. So yeah, they're getting ready to pay him like $250 million.
Oh man,
dude.
yeah. And well, I think for him, he's kind of in this weird situation because I mean, the 49er fans, they've pretty much embraced him as like, yeah, you're the savior of the team. And I mean, you're the guy now, you're the franchise quarterback. And he has this like, I don't know, like middle America type of image, whatever, which is weird because I think he's from Arizona, but he went to Iowa State. So I guess that counts as him being a middle America. But yeah, he's in this weird situation because if he does get this massive payday, then people could turn on him and be like, but you were making less than $1 million and now you're making.
Yeah, well, because that was part of the narrative, like because that was the article that was on ESPN today, was just talking about how it's coming up to the end of his contract. It's probably going to be pretty lucrative. What are the 49ers going to do? Blah, 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 blah. And some people were saying like there are people around the organization saying that this is like he hasn't proved it yet. This is still it's a contract year, but it's still a prove it year. Like he needs to have another full season, at least relatively injury free, where he plays at a consistent level. Because people are going to point to, well, obviously they haven't won the big one, but I mean, 31 out of 32 teams aren't going to win the big one every year. So it's like, it's hard to hold that totally against him.
Right. Mahomes,
he had some clunkers in there. Like he had a game or two where they just flat out pulled him out because they're like, yeah, we're fucked. So
the Ravens, that game sucked.
Because that's the thing too, is that because there is obviously he's still young. He's still super young. But there is an argument to be, I'm not necessarily saying I agree with it, but there is an argument to be made that, look, a true starting NFL quarterback that's a genuine like league leader doesn't get benched. Like the worst game in the world they can play means they're still in it and they're still running the offense because they're the unquestioned leader. If you're getting benched, that's really fucking bad. It better be because, you're actually hurt and they're not going to risk your long-term health. So like, when they finally took him out of that playoff game a couple of years ago, it was because he can't do it. He can't run the offense. He's too hurt. It's really sad. We're just going to roll the dice. But this past year, when he was like up to 4 picks and they were losing by 5 touchdowns or whatever. Yeah. It's like, and he gets benched. It's games like that they're going to say, well, I don't know about 250 million, Brock. I mean, does that look like a $250 million performance to you?
Yeah.
But with that said, the other side of the coin, because this is the same argument I make about coaches every year. You know, every single year there's always 4, 5, 6, 7, even 8 coaches. Sometimes as much as a third of the league. It's like, should we fire our coach? You know, it's common for a quarter of the league to actually fire their coaches in any given year.
Fire Kyle
that's like,
Shanahan.
That's a crazy turnover. So the reason I bring that up is that when people are always saying we should fire, that's the Southern way. It's FARH, fire. We should fire the coach because we're not winning. You know, literally anything other than Super Bowl equals fire the coach. I'm in SEC country, right? So this is college football USA. So down here, like if you're a UT fan and we don't beat Georgia, beat Alabama, beat Florida, all of them by a combined 8 million points, win the SEC and win the national championship, it's fucking fire his ass.
Yeah, right, right.
If you're
That's how it should be.
Yeah, if you're 11-1 instead of 12-0, fucking kill yourself.
Hell yeah.
All right, so anyway, there are people who would say that, and my answer to them is always, sometimes the question isn't whether or not you think your coach should be fired. The question is that if he died right now, who would you replace him with? And if you don't know who that is, maybe you shouldn't fire him. So I think Bill's done, dude. Bill's done. He's 1 million years old and he's done. But so it's the same question for like any consequential team leader, obviously the quarterback position. Mm-hmm. So if you're not going to pay Brock Purdy whatever number he slides across the table, if he says that's my number, take it or leave it, and you say okay, leave it, then okay, who's the starting quarterback of the 49ers next year then? Because again, it's not about whether or not you think Brock Purdy has earned the contract. It might be who's the quarterback then next year? I mean, if they win double-digit games and go to the playoffs, they're not going to be drafting the number 1 fucking quarterback because they're going to be drafting at like 30. Yeah. So you're not getting that guy. So who's starting? Who's starting next year? Because it won't literally be Jimmy G, but it'll be someone like that.
Oh my god!
You're gonna refuse to pay Brock Purdy because he's 2 wins short of literally having the greatest like start in NFL history to a career, and therefore you're not going to pay him. You're not going to give him an extension, and instead you're going to go into free agency, get Mason Rudolph, and just wing it next year. Or go Justin Fields. You go to the Steelers, say, hey, Justin Fields, come on down. Do you think Justin Fields is better than Brock Purdy?
No.
I mean, because it's the same. It's because I say this from experience because it's like you look at Dallas, for instance. Mm-hmm. I think that you should move on from Dak Prescott because Dak Prescott is not that guy. He's not the guy. But they also have made some unwise contract negotiations in recent past. So it's not like they're sitting on a ton of money. Now, if he wants a ridiculous amount of money, I tell him, all right, fuck off, go find it somewhere. We'll get somebody else because we need to think about the future. Dallas has some really good young defenders and some good skill players. So fuck Dak Prescott. We'll find somebody else. With that said, that conversation would have been better to have a few years ago than now. They shouldn't have even extended him in his most recent contract. Now it's like, well, again, you're looking at the QB market and you're like, well, nobody with a quarterback who's really good is trading their quarterback who's really good. Like people in Cincinnati are saying that this is a make it or break it year for Joe Burrow. Like, dude, are you fucking kidding? Here, you have Dak Prescott. We'll take Joe Burrow off your hands. How about that? And when we're celebrating the Super Bowl this year, tell me how things worked out with fucking Dak Prescott in Cincinnati. You dumb motherfuckers.
Cooper Rush is still the backup there, right? And you have Trey Lance, so
Trey Lance is just a ball boy. Yeah, everybody knows that.
Right.
That was
the overall pick. Oof.
That was the DEI hire by Jerry Jones.
Yeah, right. See, I got black guys. See.
Yeah, well, the hell, they got more black guys than white guys in the quarterback room. That's why they can't win the Super Bowl. But with that said, they were just trying to find someone whose skin tone matched Patrick Mahomes. That's all.
It's a good thing
we're
on ESPN right now. If you said that, fire Alan Mosley. What would you say that?
Yeah. Charles Barkley would say it. Anyway,
he would,
he would. He didn't give a fuck. So the moral of the story is for the 49ers, there's no reason to believe that they will not have a good year this year. It remains to be seen if they will be as good of a team this year as they were last year. It's possible they won't be as good of a team overall, but be the best team in the NFL. And that's common. That's happened a lot of times. There's been plenty of teams that when they peaked, they fell short.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they kind of came off their peak, they won it all. And it's partly because just experience. You have your experienced veterans who have that experience of being in the big game. They come back and they're improved. They're better for it, even if they're not quite as talented. And it's what other teams do. Like, okay, this year we ran into this just team of destiny and lost, but next year we're the team of destiny and they're gone. So
yeah,
I think the 49ers are a legit contender, but I would be worried. I would be worried for them the way I would be worried for any team a couple of years from now when they have to literally dump $250 million on a player, which is about to happen.
Well, another thing too that just happened recently is arguably the best offensive lineman in the game right now, Trent Williams, is he's holding out too. He's like, hey, you guys were talking about Brandon Ayuk. I didn't say a fucking word. Now look at me. Hey, you should pay me because you need me because you're like, as the 49ers expert here, their offensive line sucks. So anyone, whenever you see a list, I've seen some lists from big time publishers, and they're saying that the 49ers offensive line is actually pretty good. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what? It's literally Trent Williams. Maybe that's why, because Trent Williams like like first ballot Hall of Famer. Everyone else is just guys. You know what I mean? It's not like every single person on that line is great or is pretty good. It's literally the best ever, and then it's all right. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, again, you look at last year's Super Bowl. The Chiefs had their most inconsistent year on offense, and Patrick Mahomes had some of his most inconsistent games of his career this past season. And yet they won because their defense, which has not been the hallmark of Andy Reid teams, was the best defense they had basically since he was the head coach there.
Yeah.
And in the critical scoring position drives of that game, Brock Purdy was getting blindsided. I mean, like, he's in the shotgun, and when he receives the snap, there's a defender on the rush.
On the right side, because the right tackle and the right guard fucking suck. They're literally getting bulldozed and pancaked. Like, oh, it's over for you. Chris Jones is literally right in Brock Purdy's face. Like, where is he going to go with I know he has great intangibles and he has great instincts, but I mean, fuck, when there's a guy right in front of your face and anywhere you move, it's over. You might as well throw it and hope something good happens.
Yes. So
the crazy thing too about that, I think it was that play. It was one of those plays like that. But Brandon Ayuk was wide fucking open on the left side, but he was looking that way. He was looking over on the right to Juwan Jennings.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh yeah, because Juwan Jennings is saying, please help me win the Super Bowl.
Fucking Brandon Ayuk beat his man. He's literally in the end zone. If he just looked to the left, even just a split second, threw it that way, and hope to God nobody like batted it down. Oh man, that would have been oh god. Anyway, it's a lot of what ifs, and can't take it back, obviously, but. And this was the best opportunity for that team to win, I think, because like you're saying, the Chiefs, it was like a down year for them, which is crazy. How a down year is them still making it to the Super Bowl. Isn't that ridiculous? Like, if you have Patrick Mahomes, you can pretty much be like, literally every single other player on that team sucks, but if you have Patrick Mahomes, you still have a chance.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it definitely is ridiculous if they are trying to say that the offensive line is a strength. However, anytime a player holds out, there's always people in the fan base that are like, "Ooh, fuck that guy. He's not a team player. Whatever. Don't give in. Don't pay him."
He has no guaranteed money in his contract, as far as I know.
But all the reasons why he's holding out, you listed in your own description of him when you opened up that train of thought. It's like, oh, you mean the best offensive lineman in the NFL, or arguably top 5,
right?
Who also is on a team that is currently watching other veterans walk, and who also knows the franchise quarterback is in a contract year. Yeah, he's fucking hold out. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. He's smart. He was smart to
Yeah.
not say anything because everybody was focusing on Brandon Ayuk and whatever the hell he's doing. Because the weird thing too about him is he was being really loud and going on podcasts. But yeah, I want to play the 49ers. But hey, I also like to play for so and so. Then he fucking goes to training camp. He shows up to training camp. You're doing all this noise, all this like, oh yeah, I'm not being treated right. I need to get paid. I mean, I should get paid more than Jalen Waddle. And then fucking he goes to training camp.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you even go? Like, you've already made all this mess. You smudged your image or whatever, and then you go, hey guys, what's up? I'm not practicing, but I did show up because I don't want to get fined. No, you make a hard stance and go, I don't give a shit about this $50,000 fine or whatever it is for not showing up. I am not going there because I want my money, or trade me. One of them.
The guys who can hold out because they genuinely have the leverage to hold out can literally tell the team, if I'm fined $50,000 every day that I don't show up to camp, that's $50,000 more dollars you need to add to my new contract.
Yeah.
Or go fuck yourself.
It's like, who's telling him this? Who is talking to him? Hey, you know what you should do, Brandon? You should tell everyone that you want to get, because you did request a trade like a couple of days or so before training camp, and then show up to training camp. What the?
I don't know, man. It's anyway.
Oh my gosh.
It's old news now at this point. So they've got that situation. It's the same thing as like the Bills with Stephon Diggs. Like Diggs, obviously there were some problems there. There was tensions for a while, and it finally boiled up to the I want out, the ultimatum. I'm out. And then they move him, which, by the way, sometimes things like that are the right move for all parties involved, because if you've just reached a point where you're at an impasse, it's better for the team to just move on. It's, if it's what the player genuinely wanted, then it's good for the player. If it's what he wanted, he wants. But it's also good for the team to just move on, just get over it. So if the Bills move Diggs and they come out next year able to just move on from that, then it's better for the Bills in the long run. And Diggs went to the Texans, who apparently CJ Stroud is like the next Jesus Christ of football. I mean, people have already forgotten, dude, that was his rookie season.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I know we've been talking a lot about how Brock Purdy deserves to get paid, but CJ Stroud would have won the Super Bowl. I mean, CJ Stroud's kind of a god. So anyway,
for that, for sure.
The Texans are super young so they're still 2 or 3 years away from where the 49ers are right now with Brock and his contract. Mm-hmm. And they just signed Stephon fucking Diggs to go along with who they already had. And they have, what's his name as their coach, who was
D'Amico
Ryan, who was a defender for the Cowboys. That's why I knew him so well. And he played for the Cowboys.
Niners too.
And he's actually another perfect example of how Jerry Jones is such a shitty CEO of the Cowboys, that there has been numerous instances of the Cowboys bringing talent up through the organization, clearly having like these guys are going to be, serious names in the future. And the Cowboys deciding, but it's some bullshit of either the timing's not right, or, we've got our guy. This is our guy. It's not your time. And those people kind of, fall to the wayside. And then they go on to be legendary personnel for another team. The most famous example of that a lot of people don't remember of a certain age is the Cowboys had a offensive coordinator in right at the tail end of their like God 90s run with Aikman and all that stuff, Emmett and whatever. And he wanted to be the head coach. He was still super young. I get that. He was super young, but he was like, I'm a Cowboy. I'm in the building. I'm in this organization. I built this offense. He didn't really build, he inherited it, but he was like, he wanted to modernize their offense when most like teams were still running the power I, including the Cowboys with, the all-time leading rusher. You can't blame him, but like he wanted to modernize the offense before other teams did. And they had him in the building, and Jerry Jones told this guy, you're wanting to do too much drastic stuff. You're still super young. We would love to keep you around, but if you can't be happy and you want to seek other opportunities, then, you know, God bless. See you later. And that's exactly what happened. He left the organization, and the Cowboys then go on like a 12-year stretch of being absolute dog shit, particularly at quarterback and offense in general. And that guy's name was Sean Payton. He left the Cowboys and he became the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. And then they went out and traded for Drew Brees. So
That's
imagine
big
if
trade.
we could trade our like decade of misery for when the Saints were good, and the Saints just keep being shit.
Yeah. Remember Quincy Carter? Remember that guy?
I remember Quincy Carter.
It's like that time, you know, when the Cowboys were bad, and then like for the 49ers, hey, remember Tim Rattay and Sean Hill? Yeah, I remember those guys. Yeah.
Well, because like the Cowboys, because they went through that stretch of time where they basically chose, like, it's one of those things where in hindsight, to even say the sentence out loud, you would just think no one would do that. Only a totally insane person would do that. And the first answer is you're right. And the second answer is that obviously hindsight's 2020, but you're still right. Even if you were there, they chose head coach Chan Gailey over Sean Payton.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, Jerry Jones, great with personnel.
Wasn't there a guy that was the head coach there? Dave Campo?
Yeah, Dave Campo, Chan Gailey. Of course, Bill Parcells was the coach there for a hot minute.
Right.
Wade Phillips, who he was a great defensive coordinator during his time, but he was not a good head coach. But they did the same thing. So like they took an old as fuck Wade Phillips and promoted him to head coach, essentially because he was a yes man. But they wouldn't do the exact same thing with Sean Payton years prior. And it's a combination of they felt he was too young and he wasn't a yes man. Like Jerry Jones wants someone who, when he says jump, they say how high. Right. And he wasn't good enough at that. Whereas Wade Phillips is exactly the kind of guy who's just going to bend over and do whatever you tell him to do. And now, of course, Wade Phillips, he goes on to like orchestrate Denver's ridiculous defense that they had there for a while and won a Super Bowl and all that stuff. So, I mean, he was a good coach, but he was not a good head coach. But that it just goes to show that like Jerry Jones has been all over the map in how he determines personnel choices. Some years he has this philosophy, but in other years he has the totally opposite philosophy. But he had it backwards in that era. They should have told Sean Payton, tell you what, we'll go ahead and let you have a crack at head coach with certain benchmarks for success, and we'll let you retool the offense and bring in the talent you want. But we're going to pay you a modest starting salary because you got to earn it because you're still, you know, whatever. Yeah. Like he would have been the youngest head coach at the time if he had been given that spot. That's what they should have done. Instead, they went out and overpaid for Chan Gailey. And then when he, you know, I know you'll be shocked to hear this, he didn't win at all. Then they got rid of him and had Dave Campo. But again, like a lot of these names are people. It's the coaching carousel. These are people who coached at like 7 different teams and have lifetime losing records. Bill Parcells was a successful head coach in his time, but he was way over the hill. Yeah, when he went to Dallas. On top of he was very much a my way or the highway guy, and it's like, oh, he doesn't get along with Jerry Jones. Yeah, no fucking shit. Like anyone could have told you he wasn't going to get along with Jerry Jones. So anyway. We're going too far into the past. The present is the 49ers have, it's not like their championship window is just going to close in a year or two because they have to pay people money. Every team has got people coming up on contracts. They have to pay them money. The difference is just that this has been their opportunity to focus on their strengths and pay other people, and that the reckoning is soon at hand. That doesn't mean that they're going to go to being terrible. It just means they've been gifted a few years of development. So in my opinion, they've got a couple of years to make it work with the team they have. If it doesn't, then it's a matter of are they going to retool for another run, or will they
Yeah.
need a few years? But I mean, again, you look at the Chiefs. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is not like, I still think of Patrick Mahomes as a kid, but he's not a kid. He's not that young anymore. And so he's already been through a couple of different eras of Chiefs football. He's been through an era of Chiefs football where they had like, what's his name? Dude that went to the Dolphins.
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill. Like, he was the feature skill player.
Mhm.
And of course, obviously Kelsey was still there, but he was younger, and they had like no defense at all, but they
Yeah.
were a winning team. And then they went through an era where some people aged out. They lost some people to attrition. Some people threw tantrums and left the team, like Hill, but they were still a winning team. So it's not, so it doesn't mean that, oh, you know, our window's closed, we're going to suck now. It just means it's going to be a different looking team. I mean, the 49ers went to the Super Bowl last year, are a different looking team than the 49ers went to the Super Bowl a couple of years before. So it obviously doesn't mean they can't go back. It just means it'll be a different identity of a team.
Well, I would also say, to add to that, with like the Chiefs, whatever, it's the fact that Andy Reid's willing to kind of change how he wants his team to look. Like, this year will be more of the Tyreek Hill offense. Then the next year it'll be more of a defense. Because like when they lost the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers, when Tom Brady won his billionth Super Bowl, their offensive line was terrible.
Yes.
And so the next year they went, hey, let's add to our offensive line and be kind of a more of a running team and all that stuff. And then what happened?
Mm-hmm. Well, the Chiefs are living exactly the life you live when you have a Hall of Fame quarterback. Like, if Mahomes retired today, he would make the Hall of Fame. He already would.
No question, yeah.
And the dude can play for another decade easily, maybe more. So when you have a guy that you just know, like everyone in the building knows that is a first ballot Hall of Famer, then you can take some risks. You can be like, you know, we're going to be willing to let that side of the locker room degrade in order to focus on this side, because we're just going to expect them to carry the slack, because that's what a Hall of Famer type of talented guy can do. I mean, same thing for all those years with the Patriots, with Tom Brady. Like, a lot of people towards the end of his Patriots run made such a big deal about how, oh, Bill Belichick, he never wants to spend money in free agency. They won't get Tom any help. They never get any, like, you know, top shelf, like diva type wide, other than Randy Moss, remember? So it's not like they never did, but you know how the media is. Oh, he just never does.
Yeah, right.
Like they just never go out and get any good free agents to help Tom. It's like, yeah, but that's because they were putting all of their focus into the other side of the ball, because it's like, you're Tom Brady. You're like the highest paid guy in the league. We expect you to carry the fucking weight on that side.
Right.
And so that we can focus. So again, going back to contract year and who deserves literally $250 million, is Brock Purdy that guy that I just described?
Yeah, that's a knock on him, is that he has all these all-star players around him: Deebo Samuel, Kittle, and McCaffrey, and Ayuk.
They super underutilized Kittle, by the way. I think Kittle is every bit as good as Kelsey and much younger, and yet for some reason, I don't know.
Yeah, like
disappears.
It's like 8 times out of 10 they'll use him as a blocker. Because I mean,
he's a great blocker, and he's a dope blocker. Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah.
Except for that one time when that fumble happened and he had to say hi George, and then the guy was, oh shit, whoops. That would be a smudge on his resume too, little mark. But yeah, like Tom Brady, he made his players around him better. So yeah, with Brock Purdy, can you actually amp up your players? Like, can you make Deebo Samuel better? Can you make this guy named Danny Gray? Can you make him better? Can you make this other guy named trying to think of some other ones, Jacob Cowing, one of the draft picks they had this year? Can you make that guy better if he's gonna play?
Yeah.
You know, Ricky Pearsall.
So again, this is the two sides of the argument. On the one hand, does a guy deserve $250 million contract if he can't? Like, you think of all those years that Peyton was in Indianapolis. Dude, the Colts were shit. The Colts won 13 plus games every year, even though they were total dog shit, based entirely on having Peyton Manning. That's a guy who gets a $250 million contract.
Yeah.
Is Brock Purdy that guy? The answer, probably not. Be honest.
Yeah.
No,
It's like a
he's,
we'll see. Yeah.
he's not. No, he
Yeah.
never will be. He ain't that level. He's good.
Right.
He ain't that level.
Right. Right.
But again, it's not about that. It's about if you don't pay him, who's going to play quarterback next year? And if the answer is I don't fucking know, you got to pay Brock Purdy.
Joshua Dobbs.
I mean, he's good for like a few weeks. I mean,
Right.
How can you not love the guy? He's fun. He's just a cool dude.
Yeah.
Astro Dobbs. Didn't they sign him? Isn't he there?
Yeah, he's their backup well, on the depth chart, he's probably their quarterback too, but who knows?
They actually, I'm dead serious. They should sign him and make him the backup, like go into the season with him being the number 2 for a couple of reasons. One is he's just like everyone talks about what a dope locker room guy is. Like the NFL that we currently live in is an NFL where if your top guy that you're paying the big bucks to is out, you just don't win. That's just how it is. If Tom Brady's out, you don't win. That's just life.
Yeah.
On the other, so you can't make decisions based on what happens if Brock gets hurt. You just can't. You don't have enough time or money for that. You got to make decisions assuming your key position players are healthy and fit. Otherwise, you're just not going to win the Super Bowl. So I wouldn't worry about from that perspective. But Dobbs, I think last year, obviously he fell off at the end. But people always love to talk about how like, oh yeah, he had 1 or 2 good games, but then he has a terrible game and he gets benched. Just like this dude literally got off the plane and like went to the locker room, put on his helmet. Like, please have anyone else in the league do that. I mean, even starters. You could take a starter from another team and literally send him to another team to play on the Thursday, like play on Sunday for one team and then show up to a Thursday night game and play for another team. They're going to be dog shit. Dobbs did that and they actually won a couple of games. So he clearly is a guy who works hard. He's got the mental aspect. And then finally, the most important thing is like one of the greatest college football plays ever was a Hail Mary from Josh Dobbs to Juwan Jennings. So at least you have the UT connection right there on the field.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Like, if Brock Purdy did go out and Dobbs has to come in, he's going to be looking for Juwan Jennings. Like, on every fucking play because they're, they got the history.
Wow.
So anyway, I'm being a homer there, but that's what I would. I mean, they bothered to sign him off the street anyway because they needed another guy in the locker room. So they ought to keep him. Don't just have him for the preseason. They need to keep Dobbs.
I mean, yeah, he'd be good for a couple games, but we'll have. I mean, just.
But he shouldn't have to play
pray.
more than a couple of games. If Brock's out for more than a couple of games, your season's over. Just move on.
Right. Yep.
I mean, look at the Bengals this past year. Like the Bengals had that guy from Washington come in and he had to play a few weeks and he was pretty good for a couple of games. Same thing as always. Like you have all these different guys that when they're given their moment to shine, they rise to the challenge. They have a 1 or 2 good games, but they hit the wall pretty quick. And it might be because they're not that talented. And it may be just because they're put in an impossible situation. And most people would not succeed long term.
Yeah, teams have film on them now.
So that's certainly a part of it. But the Bengals can't be upset with falling just short, even because they were playing a backup. Like you didn't have Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
You know that if you had Joe Burrow for 17 weeks, we'd be having a different conversation.
Right.
So don't worry. So just forget about that one. Move on to this year. Let's talk about what a healthy Joe Burrow can do. Same thing for the 49ers. The 49ers have to be making all their decisions based on, look, hey, Brock Purdy's going to be healthy and not get benched for 17 weeks. And we're going to have a great season. And then that's what we're going to base our long-term decisions off of is that. I would be more, if I'm the 49ers, I would be more concerned about the fact that, again, it's not whether or not Brock Purdy is good enough to be a starter long term. I think he is good enough to be a starter long term. It's just we live in a pay me. We live in a what have you done for me lately world, and we live in a pay me league where if it's his contract year and he knows that he's a statistically top 10 QB over the last couple seasons, despite having some tough breaks. And he knows that you don't have, a number 1 pick waiting in the wings, then fuck you. You're going to pay me whatever I want. I mean, that's business. That's part of the game. So that's going to happen. They've already lost some players to attrition, and they're probably going to lose a few more in the coming years. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be bad. It just means they got to replace them. I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same thing as things like Jawan Jennings. So Jawan Jennings, you know, if the game had ended differently, everyone would be talking about how he was the hero of the Super Bowl. Right.
Yep.
Like, so will Jawan Jennings, now that Ayuk said, fuck you guys, is Jawan Jennings going to go into this year and the team's going to be like, all right, Jawan, we're going to really lean on you because we need you this season? Or is he just going to kind of stay in his role as like the number 3 down and distance guy? If the answer is he's going to stay the number 3 down and distance guy, then that probably means that's the best he's ever going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And which means they're going to have to go out and pay some other number 1 wide receiver a bunch of money.
Yeah.
But if he can move up the depth chart and be a more consistent playmaker, then they'll be fine. So who knows?
Yeah. And I mean, also Deebo Samuel, they're saying that this could possibly be his last year with the 49ers too, because like you're saying, Brock Purdy, if he does get that bag, are they going to be able to afford Debo? They're going to be able to afford all these other players. They're going to. I mean, they have so many free agents next season. It's crazy. I mean, the team next year is going to be Brock Purdy and so many new people. That's literally what's going to be next year. I mean, Jawan James will probably still be there. CMC may still be there, but Debo, I don't know what's going on with him. Fucking.
Well, I had totally forgotten about him. See, that's the thing too, is that Christian McCaffrey, like. He is a guy with his history. I know that he's been a dynamic playmaker, but he's also a guy. He specifically, with the mileage on him and his injury history, plus the position he plays, plus the kind of dynamic way he plays the position, having so many touches on offense, taking the ball out of the backfield so much. That guy, like, it may not be this year. Maybe it's next year. Maybe it's the year after that. We don't know. But one year he's going to have a year where he underperforms, and the next year he's going to be out of the league, because that's how it is. That's how it is, and particularly for running backs.
Yeah.
So they may not have to worry about Christian McCaffrey's contract, because I don't think he may not get another one. This is it. You win or lose with him right here. So, I mean, I like Christian McCaffrey. You know, he's good player, but I mean, again, it's like I'm more like a George Kittle guy of like, man, if they can't figure out how to run their offense where George Kittle is like at least top 3 in tight ends and receiving, then fuck that. Give us George Kittle. Like, y'all don't deserve it. Like,
who's your tight end? Who's the Cowboys tight end right now?
I don't even know who the Cowboys tight end is off the top of my head. The Cowboys have CeeDee Lamb and some other players.
Oh, well, there you go.
I mean, CeeDee Lamb's fucking sick. Like,
yeah,
he's up there. So that like CeeDee Lamb is the perfect example of he was their top draft pick, which means there's a lot of pressure for him to perform, and he did. Like, sometimes things work out, you know, like the way there's like with Brock Purdy, it's, oh my God, I can't believe this low pick played so well. And sometimes it's like, oh my God, I can't believe this high pick was a bust. CeeDee Lamb was just, oh my God, he did what he was supposed to.
Right. Yeah.
Like, he's
first rounder. You obviously, that's how you're supposed to be.
Yeah. You're supposed to be ready to walk on the field next week and play.
Right.
And he's now, obviously he isn't just a quality starter. Like, he's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Yeah. So that obviously helps. And that's catching balls from Dak fucking Prescott. So he's actually a god.
I know. Imagine if he was getting balls from Brock Purdy. Whew.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, you remember Megatron with the Lions.
Right. Yeah.
Like, he could have legit been a greatest wide receiver ever, but he played for the Lions. Now, caveat there, people like to say that, like, he was the only good player and the Lions were shit, and then he finally was like, fuck this, and he just retired. However, he did have some years with Matthew Stafford. And while Stafford may never have been like Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, when he was in his physical prime, Matthew Stafford was a top 10 quarterback. He just played for the fucking Lions.
Right.
But he was throwing up rainbow drop after rainbow drop to Megatron. So let's not let's
Right.
not act like he didn't play with
Their
anybody.
defense was probably not that great.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
defense giving up like 41 points a game. Yeah, not that great.
Yeah, there's only so much that Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson can do. Yeah, we can score 42
Calvin
points, but your
Johnson.
defense is 49.
You know what the funny trivia about Calvin Johnson that I always I know it, but every time I see it come up, I still am like blown away by it, is that he played for Georgia Tech. And if you'll remember, he went to Georgia Tech back when Georgia Tech still ran like the triple option and they never threw the ball.
That's yeah.
Yeah, and they had fucking Calvin Johnson on their team in college, and they were like, let's run the triple option.
I've seen college games where 90% of the plays is running the ball, and I'm just like, what is this, 1930? Like, what the fuck are we watching?
Well,
here?
I mean, to be fair, the only teams that do that are themselves considered they're just gimmick offenses. Like real college teams don't do that.
Not Alabama,
I mean, the last team to genuinely be competitive at a high level while running kind of a gimmick option type of an offense was Nebraska in like the mid 90s. But basically since the late 90s and onward, that nosedived, and teams that are just running spread offenses and run read options are killing everything. I mean, because that's part of the quarterbacks going in the NFL today is like people like to, but it used to be a knock on a quarterback that like, oh, this guy, he didn't, his college ran a gimmicky offense that won't translate to the NFL. But now every team in the NFL is running a shotgun spread read option every single fucking play. So it used to be that what happened in the pros would trickle down to college, and colleges would start to try to mimic what the pros are doing because it's professional. Now it's really been more colleges are just putting 5 wideouts and shotgun snapping and just throwing it around the yard and running read option. And then all of a sudden you had teams like, whatever, like the Eagles and some other team, or even like the Redskins when they first drafted Robert Griffin. They're like, well, why don't we just snap him the ball and just let him do whatever the fuck he wants because he's the best athlete on the team. And we're just going to bank that their secondary can't guard 5 track stars before our shitty offensive line gives up a sack. Now, in the case of the Redskins, they gambled and lost because Robert Griffin died. He's dead. He's not alive anymore. But other teams have had a ton of success.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you think of like every team now that has a high flying young quarterback who is a stat whore in college, all those teams are just running like 4 wide receiver shotgun spread now. You think like the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Bengals. I mean, Joe Burrow went to Ohio State, couldn't win the job, goes down to LSU, takes a bunch of steroids or something. I don't know, has one God year. And they were like, okay, go to the NFL. But he still plays just as well in the NFL. And all he did, like that, the LSU won the national championship and their entire philosophy was, let's just shotgun snap it to Burrow. We have like 2 future NFL lottery guys on the team. And we're playing, guys who, even on the best teams in college, most of those guys are not going to play football in the NFL. So it would be like you and me are the practice squad for this team. And next week we're playing Calvin fucking Johnson.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, that doesn't seem fair because I'm not going to go to the NFL. He is. That's not fair. But then those guys went to the NFL and did essentially the same shit. So, I mean, if anything, like, again, the 49ers didn't know how good they had it when they took a chance on just a throwaway pick for Brock Purdy. Because, I mean, it's not like he didn't sling it around in college too, but he wasn't a god in college. It's not like he was one of those crazy, like setting all the records guys, but you didn't really think he could do it at a high level. He was good, but he wasn't like setting records or anything in college. And it's like, what reason would there to be to think that he would magically get better, against NFL competition rather than worse? And the answer is, I don't fucking know. Just a late bloomer, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, speaking of shotgun spread readoption, Kamala Harris is running for president. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know. It's 7 past the hour.
Yeah.
Fuck you and your political, your bullshit. I mean, she is. I guess it is technically true she's running for president, but it's not technically true that she's the nominee yet.
I don't know. I keep seeing ads on her on fucking YouTube. Hey, you should chip in. It's her talking. You should chip in. Not. You should do it today. $5. I'm like, Kamala, no, I'm not giving you $5.
Yeah,
Not doing it.
yeah, that's a lot of money for them.
Yeah, I know. And I liked how there was a video where she took a call from Barack and Michelle or Mike, Barack and Mike Obama. It was basically them saying, "Hey, we support you for president of the United States over there." And someone quoted that tweet and was like, "Oh yeah, Kamala's trying to get to the reach the black vote by taking a call on speaker." Because I don't know if you know, but at least from what I've heard and what I've seen, black people like to talk on their phone on speaker a lot. It's like, do you not know what the fuck? Just put it on your fucking ear. That's right.
Why is there a thumbs up on the screen?
Did you like that?
What the fuck was that? The fuck is that?
You try it. It's gonna do anything. You suck.
I mean, I don't know what I'm trying.
You have to do a thumbs up, and then the little bubble will pop. See?
But where is that bubble coming from?
It's coming from my head. You didn't see that little coming from my head?
Yeah, no, yeah, but okay, but what is creating? What program is making that?
It's probably StreamYard, I think. Yeah. Maybe if I do this, maybe it would come up with something else. Let's see. No, probably not. Balloons. Oh, damn it.
No.
All right.
Bullshit.
All right. Well, speaking of bullshit, It's Too Late with Alan Mosley. Where can they find it?
At Alan Mosley TV, which is right there at the bottom. At Alan Mosley TV, Twitch, Twitter /X, YouTube, whatever. Just Alan Mosley TV. Also in podcasts, thanks to Spotify, Alan Mosley TV. Wednesday nights, 9:00 Eastern time, new episodes. Best late night show in America. This past week's episode, I've gotten a lot of reviews saying that it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We said faggot a few times, so
there were a couple of questions I think you missed on the last episode and the episode before that too.
But we also, so people who have actually watched my show for more than 15 seconds of their own segments know that we don't do politics in viewer mail. So that would be why. So if your question has anything to do with politics, then we don't answer it in viewer mail.
Right,
so it's been like that for literally years. So it's actually a way I can tell if people watch the show or not.
Uh-oh.
Actually, and I'm not even telling on you. I had another guy who has been a subscriber of ours for literally years, who in the live chat this very week during the credit scroll said, "Hey guys, your mics are still on." Like, yeah, our mics are on during the final credit scroll. They have been for like 5 years.
Oh man.
So that guy just told the whole world he's never watched to the end of an episode.
And I think I just told everyone that I'm the one that asked a political question. I was like, why did you answer my answer my question?
Your questions are bullshit. That's why.
Oh God, what a loser.
Yeah, and I don't understand. Like, it's just because the thing is, it's like sometimes I'll have people that'll write in the viewer mail, "I can't think of something to ask." It's like, okay, so first of all, you didn't even have to write that.
Yeah.
And second of all, you mean to tell me you can't think of something to ask at all? No questions for me and Dave at all. It's pretty impressive. You literally know everything about me and Dave. It's pretty amazing. So I don't know.
If people want to learn more about you and Dave, then they should go watch It's Too Late with Alan Mosley.
Yeah, even though it's not really like it's. I don't know. Is that what the show's about? Is the show about me and Dave? I don't think so. It is
Has your
just my
name on
play
it.
thing, though. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. Sometimes people will ask, like, why is it some weeks you'll have like some really serious expert guest, and then another week it'll be you guys eating Taco Bell, and then another week you'll call people retarded faggots, and then another week you'll be like really straight laced and talking about important election news. And it's like the answer is because this show is my personal plaything.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's a reflection of how you see
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
Just like how I've walked into this show and you work hard to put together topics and graphics, and then I come in here and do whatever the fuck I want for an hour. And then you look at the clock and then you panic because you're like, look at all this shit in my notes to go through. You're like, how am I going to fit this in the negative 13 minutes we have left?
Yeah. I mean, it's part of the charm. I have this whole checklist. All right, we're going to go through this. Hey, Alan, we're going to do this and that. We're going to talk about this and that. And you go, oh, yeah, it sounds good. And then, hey, about them 49ers. And you're like, oh, well, that's my kryptonite. When you say, yeah, exactly.
I have that emote. It's right there in the chat because you're on Twitch. We're on Twitch right now. And that's my okay faggot emote, which is a Twitch emote.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That's great. I don't have any more times I can say that, but all right, everyone. Thanks again for watching and listening. Thanks, Alan, again for doing this with me. And we will see you next week talking about whatever the fuck Alan wants to talk about. I don't even need to do any preparation. It's not going to work.